Welcome to the video on Zoho CRM blueprints. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a blueprint and also kind of explain how a blueprint works. Blueprints are very unique in their own way in how that they can help you or your staff be able to navigate a little bit better through the Zoho system. So for instance, I'm going to show you something really basic. So in the contacts, we have Maggie Simpson here. And if we click on Maggie Simpson, in this line of business, you may need to know whether or not this specific contact is an active contact. And so hence, we have this field that we've created called status, and you can call this contact status or current status or whatever you need to call it. But what we've done is we've created this one called active, inactive, and then archived. Or in other cases that we've used before has been discharged or closed off or deceased. And so this status kind of helps you define this customer a little bit faster. And as you can see, this top section here is known as the business card, where the status field is actually shown at the top. And it allows your staff to be able to see whether this contact is active or not. So first of all, you need to create a field that's a drop-down menu on the module that you need to do that on, and then set your values for that field. And then once you've done that, we click on the settings button in the top right-hand corner here, and that's going to load this setup page. And then down the bottom left, we're going to select Blueprint under Automation. If you don't have Blueprint there, it's probably because the version of your Zoho CRM might be different. So if you click on the little icon in the top right-hand corner, you'll be able to see what subscription version you've got. And then you can go to the Zoho pricing page on their website, zoho.com, and then I believe it's /pricing, and then you'll be able to see whether or not your subscription version has Blueprint enabled on it. If not, you may need to upgrade your plan. So click on Create Blueprint, and I'm going to call this one Contact Status, because that's what we're doing. The module is on the Contacts module, so select Contacts. The layout, we only have one layout. We're not running multiple layouts here, and by default, you won't be either. So just select Standard. If you are running multiple layouts, then you should already understand what that means. The next thing we need to do is we're going to choose the field. So if we just select this button here, it says choose a pick list with multiple values, okay, in which this is going to be running the states in. This will be a little bit more clearer once we get in. But basically, we're going to run this off the status field, okay? So this is where we're going to be telling the blueprint, we want you to run on those values we've already entered into the system. Then we need to define a criteria for which the records are associated with this blueprint. Well, in this instance, right, all of the contacts that we have in our system are not set by any criteria. Everyone is a contact and they are either active or they're inactive or they're archived. It's period, that's all they are. However, you may have a specific criteria where you might be, say if, for instance, you're an organization that might have like contacts as in their customer contacts, but then you've got contacts that might be in your system that are like suppliers and referral partners and real estate agents or whatever, like they might be a different category. Then in that case, then you may need to filter based on whatever type of contact they are. And then that way, this blueprint will only run for the contacts that you want it to run for. Then we select Next. And now we get to create the blueprint. So first of all, we're going to start off with active. And then we're going to grab inactive and just drag these out onto the screen. Like you can just do it as simply as I am there. Now, When a client comes on board with us and they are converted from a lead to a contact, they become active. Okay. And then after that, we may make them inactive or we may archive them. So what we want to do is we want to grab that little box and we want to drag that down to archived. And then we want to grab another one from up here. And then we want to drag that down to inactive, just like that. Okay. And so in this instance, we can create a transition here and we're going to call this active, add new and save. And I'll explain what that does in a minute. I'm going to go here. I'm going to create this transition, and this transition is going to be called, actually what we're going to do is call this archive contact. A little bit more self-explanatory. And then this one is going to say contact is inactive. And hopefully that gives a little bit more context around that. It's a little bit more intuitive. So it's very conversational like, and this is something to remember with blueprints. So all I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go ahead and save that. Okay. And then I'm going to go back into contacts in here. So now that we're back in here against the contact Maggie Simpson, right, you can see here that the current state is known as active. So this little gray box has now just popped up. So this is what a blueprint does. So it kind of segments the difference between this business card at the top here, and then obviously all the rest of the data and information that we collect on this contact. But as you can see here, the current state is active because that's what we set. So we'll go back into that blueprint. The state is called active, and the state is always going to be the white box, right? And what you'll see now is when we go to status on the contact record, we actually can't do anything with this field. It's locked out. It's got this padlock on there. That's because the blueprint, which is this section through here, is now basically taken over that field, and now you cannot do anything because now basically this blueprint is now running as this kind of only transitions that you can do. So now you understand what transitions mean. Archive contact or contact is inactive. So it's a little bit explanatory and there's a little bit of a conversation around it. The downside to this, guys, is if I click on this transition and we want to rename this, you'll see that I've now ran out of characters with AS on it. Or if I put 2 dots at the end, I've run out of characters. Unfortunately, it's only 22 characters long, unfortunately. So just keep that in mind. The states, however, they run up to about 20, I think it's 28 or 32 characters, but the transitions, unfortunately, are limited. And it's annoying because it would be great if they were not limited, because I find that they're very more conversational, whereas the state is not conversational. It's just highlighting where is that job sitting at right now, or where is that client sitting at. But that's just be very mindful how you name these, because you're going to have to be very precise on that conversational act. Now, if we go back into Maggie Simpson here and we have the transition, what I can do now, I can archive Maggie Simpson and click on her, and now she becomes archived essentially, okay, which it says there, status is archived. Now, this is interesting because the question is for you, okay, is can a customer or a contact go as archived, but then is it a chance that they may come back in the future and become active? Now, there's all sorts of different conversations about when they might be converted from a lead and all that kind of stuff. But let's just say, for instance, they become active again and they come back through your books. There's 2 ways to do this. One, you go back to the status field and now we can edit it because it's exited the blueprint. There's no loop in the blueprint. So the blueprints come to an end. So we've basically gone down here and then hit it into the archive, and it's sat there, and now there's no exit out of this blueprint. So hence that whole gray bar's gone. This field status now is completely available for us to do what we want. So you can now go back in here, select active, and then approve that. And now all of this transition and the blueprint pops back up, and now you're back at the start of the flow again. You guys might turn around and say, I don't like that. I don't ever want my staff to be selecting this status button. I want them to always use the blueprint. Well, I'll show you what you do. So in this instance here, we go back to the blueprint, and what we need to do is we need to say that the active transition, which is this one up here, can be selected whenever you're sitting in the archived state. So to do that, we go over to the right-hand side here and tick the box called Common Transition, okay? And automatically, you would have just seen green lines pop up. So if I hover my mouse over active, I don't click on anything, I just hover the mouse over it. It is now saying that both archive and inactive can now come back up to archive active and click that button. So what we're going to do now, I've just clicked the one button, Common Transition on the right. I'm going to click Republish. And this is interesting because what happens now is the system's checked and it's noticed that we have hundreds of contacts in our system. And it's now saying, what do you want to do? Because you've just changed the blueprint. And a blueprint is quite dangerous to change because you might have been running blueprints for 10 years. And all these ex-customers from 10 years ago may be at some point in this pipeline. And if you move them from that point, you're actually moving their position, which could trigger out automatic emails. It could trigger out tasks and events in the system. So it's a very, very, very gentle system and fragile system that you've got to be very wary of, that you don't go changing stuff just on the fly and really fast. You really need to think about this stuff. In this instance, we don't have anything crazy set up. This is a very basic blueprint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, yes, move every contact onto this new blueprint. It's not going to affect anything, okay? But you may need to grandfather the blueprint if you're editing one that's got some pretty crazy logic in there, because you may accidentally start triggering off emails left, right, and center. So we're just going to click done. We're going to go back into the contact and we're just going to reload the contact. Remember, this is a cloud-based system. So whenever you make changes and you're jumping from tab to tab, always refresh it before you test it because it won't be included in that state. Okay, so now we're still in the active state. And now in this instance, I want to archive this contact. So I'm going to click archive. Now have a look at that. In the current state that this contact's in, they're archived. And as a transition, I can now reactivate them. But you guys might say, oh, that doesn't make any sense. I want it to say reactivate client. Well, you can kind of do that as well. So if we go back into the blueprint, you can actually grab this and then drag this back around to active to there. And what this is going to do is create an independent transition. Now, this might be handy for some of you guys who might need to consider, resending out a different email template. Like, thank you, Maggie, for re-signing back up with our Dento. We really appreciate you supporting our organization, and we really hope you enjoy your time. If you have 5 minutes, please go to our Facebook page and our new Instagram page and our Twitter page and go and like it. So that's the only real reason why you may want to create a separate transition back into active, because you wouldn't be doing that when a client becomes active, but you may want to do it in this scenario. And in this scenario here, we want to say reactivate. What we're going to do is we're going to turn active off of a common transition. So we just uncheck the box. And then reactivate, we want to be able to reactivate an inactive client too. So what we want to do is click on reactivate, which is the one that we just created. And then we select that as a common transition. Now I'm going to show you something here, which is really dangerous. When I just did that, you're going to notice that every other state, start, active, has also come over as well. So we don't want to be able to have an active client be clicked on the reactivate button because it doesn't make any sense. So on the right-hand side here, there is an include all states button. So we're going to select that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to say, no, we don't want it on the start feature, please. So turn that off. And now that we've done that, it's now disabled the start. And if I hover back over reactivate, that green line is actually just popping up through like the wrong channel there. So if I just move everything out the way, you can see it's coming back through inactive. So what we're going to do now is we're going to republish that blueprint and we're going to click save. We're going to move every blueprint, every record to that blueprint. I'm going to go back into Maggie Simpson and refresh the page. So now you can see that Maggie Simpson has been archived, but we can reactivate her. So by clicking reactivate, it was a separate transition and now she's been reactivated in the system. Hence, you can now go ahead using the blueprint functions to start sending out emails, text messages, functions, and tasks and change of ownerships and things like that. So to do more of that kind of cool stuff now that I've shown you that, let's say, for instance, you want to, set up certain, like a checklist. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on reactivate. So when we reactivate a contact, we want a checklist to say, update our Xero file and, call Maggie and make sure that her phone number details are updated. So what we're going to do is on the right-hand side, we're going to click on during and we're going to click add. And we're going to select checklist and we're going to say, please check the following. And we're going to say, phone, is the phone number the same? Enter. And then has, let's say, for instance, you're using Xero, the accounting software, has Xero been updated with the right details? Okay, something real basic like that, okay? And sorry about that, I just deleted that. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, please update the following. And we're going to say, is the phone number still the same? And have you updated Xero, which is your accounting software? Okay, and that's all we're going to do, and that's it. Then we can go over to after, and we can actually send out an email notification from this system. This is pretty self-explanatory, and you'll need to play with this based on what you're doing, but what you may need to figure out here is the email template. And so you can actually select an email template from the system. So if you haven't got templates designed yet, you'll need to do this first, and then you'll be able to select from a template, or you can just simply click that and then click create template from here. Once you've selected the email that you want to send out, obviously you can just select who is going to get that email and whether there's any additional recipients. And then you can click done. You can also create tasks. So tasks will be created on a certain event or time frame. And if you carefully go through this, you'll understand what it means for your organization. And in here, you can actually merge fields. So we could actually merge in the contact's name, for instance. So if we find their first name, we could do that. So the task will be the contact's first name, okay, needs Xero updated. The due date of that task is basically just going to be the same day in this instance as the client has been reactivated. We just need to do it ASAP. So just run straight away. But you can see here that you can change the due date of that specific task for whatever reason. Status will always just be not started. Okay. Priority, you can just set the priority, whatever you need to, and then you need to assign it to a user. So if you need to assign it to, say, another staff member in your organization because the owner of that record is not going to be obviously executing that task, then you can set the specific owner in there. If you leave the field blank, it'll set it to the owner of the actual task. You can notify them and also remind them and put in a description. And what we're going to do now is going to click republish. We're going to click save. And we're going to go back over into Maggie's system. We're going to reload that now. And we're going to archive that client. And then now we're going to reactivate. Now, we've gone and reactivated her, and now it's popped up with this checklist. Please update the following. Is the phone number still the same? Yes, it is. Have you updated Xero? No, I haven't done that yet. I'll do that another time. So this is really cool about checklists. You actually click save. And now what you can do is you can actually go away, keep working on the system, come back in 2 or 3 days' time, and we can come back in. We can jump onto Maggie Simpson, and we can be like, oh, we still need to reactivate Maggie. So we need to click on that, and you can see here that that task was already done and completed. And so now it's up to you to say, yes, I have also now, a couple of days later, updated Xero. I can now save that. And because you've saved it, right, now Maggie Simpson is now active. And check this out. The next action has just popped up and it says, today, Maggie needs Xero updated. Now, I know I just demoed that in 2 scenarios, but that's something that you could do. And so now you can have a task that is automatically created against her to do something. And this has now obviously been assigned to our demo account, which is the owner of that original record. And it says Maggie needs Xero updated. And now we can go ahead and action this task. I can close that task off, and I have completed that task, and I get rewarded for doing that as well. So blueprints are pretty cool. There's a lot of different things you can do. Please take note that this blue transition is known as a common transition. And the best way for me to explain this is you can only use them 5 times in a single blueprint. I would have to say it's probably the biggest restriction inside of blueprints. I honestly believe that common transitions probably need to, be closer to like 10. In my time of being a Zoho partner, I would have to admit that I have done a lot of blueprints now, and I found that with the larger blueprint that you get, these common transitions are very handy. The reason why common transitions are very good, and let me explain to you if you're interested. If you're not, thank you very much for watching this video. The reason why the common transitions are good is because, for instance, we created a task underneath this transition. And under the task section here, if any of your staff or you at any point needed to update this task in the future on your system because it was a part of a workflow or systems or procedures or government organization changes, etc., happened, and you need to modify this, you're only modifying this once. So I only have to go to reactivate to modify this one task. And what happens is if you run out of these common transitions, this is what you need to start doing. You need to turn that off. And then what happens is you need to tell Inactive to go to active. And then you're going to have to create your own separate transition again that's going to have to be called like reactivate without a dash in it, because you can't create the same transition name after you've already created one once before. And then you click save on that. And what happens now is if that same task needs to be sent out when you're in this state here as well, well, the annoying thing is you've now got to also remember that you've got to update it here as well. And that's the only one thing that I love about common transitions is they're really simple to use, because you only have to maintain the information in one button. Whereas in this instance, when you've run out of common transitions, you need to update both of these transitions, which can be a little frustrating to the user if their system is very complex. Also, guys, I'm just going to show you one last thing as well, that you need to be very cautious with common transitions. For instance, we just created that common transition and it's just linked to inactive. You might be in this blueprint and you might think to yourself, oh, we need to have a field in here called pending, right? Because something's happening, but they're not active yet. And what happens is you can actually add in a new option in here called pending, and it will automatically add that to the drop-down menu, which is absolutely brilliant. And you can just select add. Then you might say, oh, you know what? Our clients become pending before they become active. Well, that's easy to do. Watch this. We'll put that there, and we drag that back over to there. And then we drag that down to there, and then we put that transition in there, and we call that pending. Very simple, very straightforward. You can do that. Now, here's something interesting in that you'll notice. Check this out. If I hover my mouse over reactivate, have a look what's happened. The state pending that I just created has automatically been added to the reactivate transition. Now, I find this very annoying. It's when you're creating very large blueprints and you're changing and modifying stuff in those early stages. You need to kind of go back to these transitions all the time and keep removing the new states out of them that you don't want it to be in, because it automatically adds it. So guys, that's pretty well it. If you need to know anything else, please hit us up. We are more than available to help you out. Go check out our website. It's ardento.com.au, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.